Have you ever witnessed the use of an airless gouging rod? It only needs a stinger and a power supply that can generate 220 amps, ideal when air or oxygen isn't available. Eagle 188 is a superior gouging rod that can gouge a crack or weld in cast iron, stainless steel, low to high alloy carbon steel without an air supply. The 188 electrode's high alloy coats the groove with a high nickel blend, allowing your filler rod and the base material to blend more effectively, so there's no need to grind out the carbon residue left behind by a traditional gouging carbon. Given that the coating is not low hydrogen and doesn't require oven time, every mobile rig in the nation needs a box of this in their toolkit. When it's time to gouge out a weld, all you have to do is place a 188 gouging rod in your electrode holder and bend it upward rather than downward like a conventional electrode. With a 1/8 inch rod and 200 amps of power, you can gouge out a crack that is 1/8 of an inch deep with each pass. Although radically different from welding electrode or normal gouge carbon, this gouging method may be mastered in just a few rods. Strike your arc, place the rod almost flat against the base material, and gouge off the necessary material using a sawing motion. It can blow out a lifting or tie down eye or even a stuck track pin. For removing old welds and cracks, our 188 is excellent. For a 1/8 inch rod, choose the DC negative polarity and set the welder to 200 amps. As you saw back and forth, maintain the rod's tip on the metal by laying the rod flat at a 10-degree angle. Since there's no carbon buildup, your U-shaped hole can easily be filled with the necessary welding rod or alloy. 188 can cut mild steel, alloy steel, stainless steel, and aluminum.
We're going to take this 188 gouging rod and we're going to gouge out this piece of plate here, and then we're going to fill it in with 823. This is set at 225 amps, which works good for me because I've used it for quite a while. The more heat you have, the less control you have. So if you're a beginner, you want to start off at a lower heat, like 200 amps, because if you go too hot, it's going to get away from you. And if you use too much heat, it's going to fingernail, which you don't want because you'll be fighting it.
If you lift the rod up when you're welding like this, it'll make a mess. That's why you have to have it tilted in there like a hacksaw motion.
Right.
Buried right in the puddle and using it back and forth like a hacksaw.
Okay, you ready?
That's perfect, John.
And now you don't have to worry about grinding because it doesn't leave any carbon behind. So if you can't get a grinder in there, don't worry about it. Okay, now I'm going to go a little deeper. All this leg just comes off the
On both sides of the weld, see how nice and clean that is?
It actually puts an alloy in there. So if you're welding on cast iron, whenever you put the heat into a cast iron piece, you're going to pull whatever's up that's in that cast iron, whether it be water, oil, grease, and you're going to porosity in your weld. So you're going to have to put one pass in if you don't use the 188. If you grind it, then you're going to have to grind out all that porosity and then hit it again. But if you use our 193, which is a full nickel, you get less porosity because you get more nickel. But if you use this, it puts a blocker in there, so when you weld, you don't have to worry about the porosity coming up because it actually stops the water and the oil from coming up into the weld.
Okay.
As soon as you put heat into it, you turn that oil into a gas, kind of shit, right? And it comes up into your weld.
It will prevent moisture from getting into the weld zone, and moisture causes cracking if your welds are too wide.
Right.
That's why you want to be no wider than your pinky. Also really good for people who want to make their own blades last longer on heavy equipment. You gouge out the edge of the blade and you fill it in with hard facing rod. It will make it last longer because it'll wear into the blade where the hard facing is.